Welcome back to the table. We have in front of us Space Station Phoenix, the new game from Rio Grande.
Yeah.
This company, I think, has been on a roll. They have Beyond the Sun.
It's Beyond the Sun.
Which was a fan favorite, a favorite of ours.
Yes. Art Deco is one that came out earlier this year. That was a game that I really enjoyed too. So
this is not like Beyond the Sun, but it is, again, another space game.
Another space game. So want to show you this game. We're going to give it an overview. It is a medium weight game. You are building engines. You are taking actions and of that nature. So let me just kind of walk into it. You're going to start the game with a hub. And there are 24 hubs. There are basic 12. There are more advanced 12. And they all give you, think of us as corporations, and they're all going to give you different ways you can score off of income, combos off of actions, and they're also going to give you your starting resources. So in the beginning of the game, you get an idea of what type of engine you're going to start to try to build during going. And things like this, they give you amplified actions. They give you something that says, hey, if you take this action, you get +1. Or, hey, at the end of the game, you're going to get this specific type of scoring extra bonus. There's a lot of different things. Some of the games even have you start with resources on your board. Yeah. They're also going to have things that allow you to be up some of these tracks, which we're going to talk about. But there's quite a bit just in even the setup. You're going to start with these five ships in your fleet, and they're going to be where you take your actions. The first 5 are going to be exactly the same, and then the other ones, you're going to do a draft of level 2s and level 3s, and that's where the game starts to turn up a little bit. You want to tell them a little about the draft part?
Yeah, I mean, the draft is super important because this fleet, so let's back up a little bit to the theme. So you have that space station hub that Jeremy talked about, and the whole idea of building this space station means taking your fleet, and each one of these ships is specialized to a different action, like Jeremy said. So everyone kind of has the same, but when you're drafting ships that are coming into your fleet that are going to give you specific actions. But also, you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're out in deep space here.
Oh, wow, you're going deep.
You're in deep space, right? Space. So there's really no way to ship materials like metal all the way out into space. So the only way that you can provide metal to build your space station is by demolishing some of these ships and turning that into metal to use. So when you're drafting these, you're not only looking at their action, their ability, you're also looking at how much metal they ultimately provide. Because this is it. This is all the ships you're going to have. This is all of the metal, really, that there's some ways to get it.
There's some small, short ways to get it.
But this is like you're starting, the best you'll ever be is at the start of the game.
And you will never, once you scrap these, it'll change the game up. We're going to get into that. But this is your 9 ships. This is it. There's a little way you have access to other people's, but let's just go ahead and dig into it. So on your turn, you're really only going to have 2 choices here. You're going to either be taking actions by placing your little action marker on here and paying the cost. Now they have a cool little interaction thing that goes on where you're going to be placing and putting things on here and taking the action that's on there for the cost. But you may take an action on someone else's and you have to pay the cost of the action and then pay the person a little bit more. So there's a reason why that happens, and it's because sometimes because of the draft, that person has a more attractive action. Or maybe because you've dismantled.
You've used your action already.
You've dismantled your action and you don't have it anymore, but you want to take it somewhere else because it's more powerful. There's a little bit of strategy to even how you choose your actions, and I really like the player reaction.
I think there's a lot of strategy in the way you choose your actions because once you've taken an action, that action is blocked until you do the other thing. Jeremy said there was 2 things you can choose from. The other is like that refresh.
Yes.
Think of that like Luke Laurie style, right? You have that action where you pull everything back.
Very much Luke Laurie. Right?
Very much so.
Very much Luke Laurie.
You're pulling back all of your ships are now clear and you're getting income. So you're kind of refreshing and getting to take those actions again. So one way that you can prolong your turn, because again, any efficiency game like this, you don't want to be refreshing every other action.
Right,
you want to spread out. You want to take as many actions as possible before that refresh. And so you're going to want to use other people's ships. Like you'll have a certain number, but you see here in front of me all these different actions. I only have one of this. This is the construction action that actually lets me build my space station. I only have one.
Yeah.
Once I use that, I'm done until I refresh.
For that round. Yeah.
Unless I use Jeremy's or somebody else's at the table.
And they have other ones, but those may have not come out in the draft. So now you're just stuck with a game where that's not in play. There's no better action somewhere across the table.
Yeah, so that's huge strategy. Not just in the draft, but the order you take your actions, and also that knowledge that you're giving currency to somebody else when you use their ships. So if somebody's really low on currency, which means they're probably going to need to refresh. They're probably going to need to take that income action. If you're giving them more gems, you're actually helping them prolong their turns. So to me, this is one of the most strategic parts of the game.
So what are these actual actions? I'm going to give you very quick overviews of these actions. One, you're going to go up this diplomacy track. So after you take an action, you're going to have a part where you have this track where players are going up this track and paying to go up. Now, the person that's the highest on that track will get benefits for where they're at, or they can choose one of the benefits below. And if the people are below you, but they're on the track, they have an opportunity to get the benefits that are below them. So they can choose one of those benefits. They don't get everything. But this is one of the very competitive parts about the game, because whoever's highest on the track has more options, and some of them are points, and some of them are that metal resource. And if you allow people to kind of take advantage of that, which we're going to be talking about in our positives and negatives, they can kind of go hard on that stuff. Yeah. And you see somebody kind of getting extra points every time you take an action. You're like, hey, I'm getting cool stuff, but I'm not getting as cool stuff as they are. So there's that element to this game. And other things that are going on. One, if you want resources, you go here and you pay resources to do, what is it called?
Expedition to Terra. You're going back to Earth, sending a ship back. Yeah, this is the dice rolling
So you
part.
roll dice, you get resources, you can create these humans, which we'll talk about in a second, what all goes on in here, but that's that action. You can turn resources into aliens. So there'll be these resources you get, water and food, and then you'll be converting those into the different types of aliens that are in the game. You have going up the diplomacy track, which we just talked about paying, and then you have building ships, building sectors, which are over here, and then the dismantling stuff. But let's talk about these sectors, because that's where you're going to start to build out more of the things that are going on.
This is another big part of the strategy of the game. And you'll notice there are 3 different colors, and you have 3 different sectors of your space station that you can build out.
Yeah.
Each player can build one of each color, and you'll see that they get progressively bigger. So you have your smaller, your medium, and your large for each one. And there's a number of these. And again, they're variable. So there's a huge amount that we left in the box.
Yep.
And every time you build, you have to build out from the center, from that center hub.
Yep.
And again, this is a big part of your strategy, because a lot of these are going to give you income. They're going to give you special abilities, and they're going to let you house those aliens.
Yep.
Attracting those aliens, yes, this is a sci-fi game.
Yes.
Attracting those aliens into your space station is going to get you points.
Yep.
It's going to get you abilities. It's going to give you
additional actions. It's going to help you during your income phase.
Right.
So this is where the heart of the engine part comes in the game. You're going to have, hey, I took this action, and when I took this action, if I have my aliens filled up to here, I also get additional resources.
Right.
You have different things that are set up for if you have filled these in with different types of aliens that match those colors. There's even wild aliens. There are humans that you build for the transport, astronauts, humans that you're gonna put out there. Based on building them for resources. So there's a lot of different things going on here, but you get income. There's an income part of the game where you're going to get money or gems based on currency based on how many ships you have, and also some of the things that you have set up out here, and even your faction. And I mean, some of these things get real complicated for your faction, but some of he has a base one over here where he just gets stuff for his ships, whereas I have one where I get benefits for doing all these actions, but at my income phase, I have to figure out how I'm going to pay aliens. Otherwise, if I don't, I lose 5 points. It's really interesting how these all play out, and that stuff with these hubs.
There's
so many things that we can really, really talk about, but it's really easy to play, because it comes down to 2 things. You just take an action on your turn. It can be yours or someone else's, or you can do income. That's really what it boils down to.
Right, and all the actions you have available are literally spread out in front of you. Like, you can think of our ships here that we have laid out. You can think of these as worker placement spots, effectively. And in a 4-player game, of course, you're going to have more of those available spots, but you have more players taking those spots, so they're going to fill up pretty fast. Once somebody's taken that action, once they've put those gems down on that action, it's blocked until that player rests.
And this could be an in-game situation right here.
Oh yeah, once you're out of ships,
You're gonna. I mean, this is what it could look like. This is how your income phase gets less, but maybe you've built these things out. And then generally at the end of the game, you're going to get points for a lot of
stuff. We'll talk about that, because there's so much of a point salad aspect to this game. But the game itself doesn't end until one player hits 40 points, and you see that marked on the board.
9 of these.
9 of those.
9 of those.
I think that's it. Those are the two main.
Yeah, or
ways.
you run out of people. And I should have said this in the beginning to kind of set you up. This bag has 100 pieces in it, and it is of all these different alien types. And you're going to have these randomly put out here. So you could have only 50 in a 2-player game, 70 in a 3-player game, and 90 in a 4-player game. So you're going to have even a different setup as far as this goes. Once again, we're going to be talking about that in our review portion. So let's do it.
Let's get in because there's a lot. Hopefully, as we talk about our pros and cons, everything we just said makes sense.
Yeah.
But we could be here for 20 minutes.
Yeah, we really could.
But hopefully, you kind of understand the premise of the game. So we wanted to start with our cons first because let's just get those out of the way. Our negatives.
Yeah.
I think we share, the biggest negative of the game. You want to start with that one?
I'll just say it like this. Let me start with one of mine. Let me start with mine. Let's see if we are really on the same wavelength here. I think game length is a thing. I think game length is a thing in this.
I see,
because you can speed it up, and that would just basically mean someone knows a little bit more about the game or they found the right engine. And it may make the game shorter because that person knows, hey, I can get out here and get points, and they're getting points on off turns. And then they also may have engines that they can trigger, and you're seeing this and like, how are these people getting so many points? Or you can have the exact opposite, where it feels like everything's being slow played and there's not like strong enough engines. Maybe that has to do with the draft that initially came out.
Yeah.
People don't have enough of the right actions, or people are dismantling things and they need them. So now you have less actions to choose from, even yours or someone else's actions, which makes the game long. I've experienced, in my several plays, I've experienced short games and ones that were a little too long, but not too long where it really hurt the game.
But they could be, and I think that's definitely something you have to consider with this game because of the unique in-game conditions. If no one has a victory point engine where they're racing to 40 points, because this track right here, one of the options you can take is victory points. And if somebody is ahead on every one of these tracks, they're potentially scoring a point every time anyone does an action.
So for example, this person right here, if people take the build action, every time they have a choice to get a point.
Yeah.
So they could just constantly get a point. Now, if someone's tied with them, let's say like that, well, they can still get a point. But then that other person's getting a point, getting a point with them versus always being able to abuse that. And get a point, So it can stink if you allow someone to do that. You're allowing them to do it.
But also the other end of building out your space station. If people are not doing that, if people are choosing, and we've seen this in games like Terraforming Mars, people focus on just gathering and amassing huge amounts of stuff. If you're not actively building and you're not actively getting points, the game can just drag. You need someone pushing the game forward.
Yeah, you got to watch these hubs because if you have a mix of the basic and the advanced, that could mess you up a little bit.
Yeah.
I suggest you stick with the setup for this one because it will mess everybody up. There's a special suggestion of which one of these come out because they do get complicated. And if someone understands that and they do get better advantages with the advanced ones, that might might sway the game a little too much.
That ties into my con, right?
Yeah.
Because this game is incredibly variable, and I might mention that again as a pro.
Right.
But the con side of variability is you can have some setups that drag the game down, especially when it comes to drafting, like Jeremy said, your hubs and your ships.
Yeah.
If you are inexperienced, if this is your first game, please use the suggested ships.
Yeah.
Because if you don't draft, for example, the construction ships, we might get into a situation where every player has their base construction ship. If nobody drafts an advanced construction ship, you're limited on how many construction actions you can take.
And it might be smart to take certain things, but at the same time, once you start playing it, you're like, holy crap, we don't have the ability to do this.
You might realize halfway through the game, and somebody salvages their construction ship. Now you have 3 construction ships for 4 people. And late in the game, when you're trying to build out your space station, you'll find yourself unable to. Now, that might not be the worst offender.
It's actually not the worst.
The expedition one, though, the one that actually lets you get resources. If you don't have a lot of expedition ones, or you see this one here that I have that's just a ice harvester, you can just gain water. If you scrap that early and we have really no way to gain water, the game can slow down a little bit. And I think experienced players, that's part of the draw.
Yes.
Because when you're drafting, you're like, oh, nobody drafted a good expedition ship. I'm going to get one. Now I'm the only one. People are going to be paying me left and right to use my build or use my ship. But when you're sitting down for the first time, you don't know that. And randomizing this out here, you can have some really synergistic combos that really help push the game forward, or you can have some that aren't obvious, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be combos for the advanced player, the experienced player to find, but beginning players might not see the combos, and then it just drags a little bit.
So another negative, and it's just up to you. I have a 4x6 table. I got a big table.
Oh yeah.
4 players in this game is a beast. Okay, it is a table hog. I only stress this in negative because if you have just a regular dinner table, I'm not sure if you can play a 4-player game.
I mean, we've got this giant Rathskillers table.
We have squeezed this in here.
And you'll notice, we're not even showing, there should be enough of these of each level. So 3 colors, 3 levels each. And then you have to have a number of each for every player to have
every player. So, and we have resources spilled out. We haven't even built all our stuff out. Somebody else would have to have ships over here on their side. Right. So like the presentation is, while beautiful to look at, is also a table hog, and it may not fit on your table. You would have to get pretty creative to put it on your table. I would
agree with that. I mean, it's a huge game. You'll see pictures. I mean, it's one of the biggest table hogs that I've seen, honestly. And again, that's not going to be a problem for some people. You just push 2 tables together. I mean, you could easily take these off the table, or you could stack them up, or you could pass them around.
Yeah, you could have.
There are ways, but it is nice to be able to see all of them.
I want to mention this just because I just sort of thought about this while we were playing. Dice as like pretty much the only possibility to get resource, although you can get up here. This can be a little tricky.
It can be
a little tricky because sometimes when you have these resources, you're rolling these resources. You don't re-roll them or anything like that. So you're just rolling them. Whatever you get, you get. I mean, it's not, you may get a whole bunch of leaves, leaves and plants, and you need water and plants to convert to these guys, and you may just crap out and luck out. Well, people may roll these humans, these astronauts, well, they can take them as points instead of trying to make them or put them on there. People can just rack up points by luck. I mean, it's just one of those things. I think people should know about that. But that's generally how you're going to get your resources, other than having this action here or having them here. So it's something I should mention, so people are aware. But I mean, honestly, we got some good stuff to talk about.
We do. But let me get my last con.
Oh,
I got one more small con.
Okay.
There are a ton of icons in this game.
Yes, there are.
Now, once you learn them, it's actually great because you don't really need to read anything. You can look, even some of these advanced hubs, I can just look at a hub and say, oh, I know exactly what that does because of the icons.
And I'm almost not even going to, I'm just going to tell you right now, he's right, but I'm also going to say he's wrong because all this stuff is on these aids.
Well, sure.
Well. I mean, there's both. There's a little bit of both.
It's nice, but there is a lot of icons. So when you're sitting down to play this game for the first time and you're looking at it and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's all these different icons everywhere. Mm-hmm. But it helps with the teach. Once you know them, I'm segueing into my pros.
Yeah, okay.
My pro actually is that the graphic design is very solid.
It's very solid.
Because these icons are well defined in the rulebook.
Yep.
And when they're used, they're always used in the same way. And this is something that gets me in games.
Yeah.
When you see an icon somewhere, and that same icon somewhere else might mean something different. And that drives me crazy. Yeah. So every time you see an alien, it means an alien.
Yeah.
Every one of the alien icons shows you
the
symbols.
Different colors. Yep.
So it might tell you which color and symbol alien it's referring to. I like that. And the graphic design for this game is really clean.
Colorblind friendly because of the shapes that they have. A lot of shape versus
they use
like
shapes and colors.
Shapes and colors. So that was a major point for me. But I'll just be honest, like the feeling of the gameplay, like that triggering your engines and stuff like that, knowing that there's so much variability in this game.
There's so much variability.
There's so many different ways to build engines, and it comes from your hub choice. You're going to have 3 of those choices. It comes from how we're drafting and why we're drafting based on our hubs. It comes from these coming out randomly and having more of a selection than the 4 that you have. So now you have your engine, you know your actions and the actions you may have to take that are not yours, but then you also see these over here and say, how can I amplify what I'm doing when it comes back to my income phase? Yeah. That is very pleasing.
Well, let me talk about that too, because that's another big pro for me is how well codified the graphic design is as far as these actions, right? If you notice on our board, each one of these actions has a specific symbol and color. So you can see that, okay, red is dismantle. Yeah. This light blue is expedition.
Yep.
And that's the same everywhere. So you've got these neutral ships.
Yep.
And you've got on your player aid, it shows you, okay, well, green, this box is green. That's referring to this transfer action.
Yep.
This power that I have on my hub is green. This power is green.
Yep.
Green. So you can look at the beginning of the game and see, okay, well, look at this. There's a lot of expedition powers out here. So maybe I should get some expedition ships. Maybe I should start building these expedition powers early and filling them up with aliens so I can trigger them. And it's very easy to look at other players' hubs too and be like, oh, well, Jeremy's got some good transfer and expedition powers over there. So if I get some expedition ships too, he's going to want to come and use my ships. That's, I think, a really smart way to do it. And all that information can be gathered and like parsed with just glancing at everything because of the colors.
I just don't, I think we're saying, and I just want to be clear, like variability is a very big positive in this game. It is such a big positive in this game. I want to say another thing is just that little bit of interaction. Like I want to make sure that interaction is clear too. Just having the access to someone else's and you get something in return for that, or someone taking an action and then everybody who's on this track, even if we had a different color, will get some kind of benefit. So it makes you pay attention on off turns. Well, so it makes everything more interesting for people who would be sitting at the table.
This board is really cool too because you're not doing diplomacy a lot. So you've got to be smart as to when you're actually moving up those tracks. And again, you can look at the beginning of the game and you can see after the draft what kind of ships are available. If there are a lot of ships of one type, for example, Jeremy and I here, we have 4 of these, trade...
so it's transport time.
We have 4 of these transport actions available. So like I said earlier, you're wanting to stretch your turnout. You're wanting to take as many actions as possible. We're probably going to hit up all 4 of these. So I know I probably want to get up that transport early because we're going to be doing a lot of transport actions. But again, that's going to be different every game because the layout of ships is going to be so vastly different.
And also the things that you're going to be pursuing as far as these aliens go. So you're taking the aliens during the game and you're trying to fill in these spots in colors. Now, you're also going to get points for having the most of that color at the end of the game.
Each one of these
So some people are chasing, grabbing these hubs because they're worth sectors, which are worth a certain amount of points. But you also want to fill them in for their benefits, but also having majorities of them at the end of the game, which this is just as interesting as building the sectors because it gives you more spots to put people in. That's another little interesting strategy that goes on.
And because this is variable too, you're putting out a certain number of aliens at the beginning of the game. You could have one of these piles be very small and limited.
And people will start to chase that. They'll go, hey, I can't let that person, or hey, I at least want to be second place so I get something.
And that goes back into the scoring. But before we talk about scoring, again, Jeremy mentioned this. I want to reiterate it. The interaction of these actions is so interesting to me personally because it's all about timing. Like you really want to take some of the better versions of these actions if you're willing to pay for them. But what you'll notice, especially as you play through this multiple times, if Jeremy keeps coming over here and using my expedition action over and over again, I'm benefiting from it. But eventually I'm like, no, you're getting too big of a benefit. I'm going to scrap this ship. And Jeremy's like, oh man, my engine is dead now. Because
so now I may have to go to that person over there. Maybe I have to go to the person over there. And the strategy of that is maybe I've taken that action away from them for a little time. So there's a lot of little timing things in here. There's just a lot of strategy built into this game, and there's a lot of pleasure that you get back from your income phase and how you build your stuff.
Well, as your income phases go throughout the game, so you're getting income for all your ships. And as you start to dismantle these ships, you're getting less income, but you're getting more income from your space station. So there's that trade-off. You're actually, hopefully, getting way more gems, and you can even start getting things like steel, water, and food just from your income phase, which is really helpful. So this is a point salad game. I mean, you're scoring for the different levels of the space station you built. You're scoring for all the different types of aliens you have. You're scoring for a bunch of different in-game conditions that could be on your hub. You could have in-game conditions out on some of your space station parts. There's just a ton of scoring, and I like that.
Let's talk final scores, Ryan.
Yeah, well, so...
He's explaining the scoring phase.
I want to talk
let's talk about the final
scoring works so people understand, because the game ends when it hits 40, and you might think it's a race game. You might, and you wouldn't be amiss for thinking that, but that 40 points, by the end of the
Yeah,
game,
it's
you're
not
probably
even-
going to have 200 points or 150 points.
We should emphasize that because the 40 points is an end-game trigger.
Not a race.
Having these all is an end-game trigger, but there's so much scoring after the final turn.
Right.
It's like, whoa.
You can score like 100 to 150
50
points in
points.
in-game scoring
First
alone,
turn,
which is
yeah.
crazy. But it's good because I don't like race games. And
Yeah.
so normally I'd be like, oh, a race to the end. But when you're scoring 100 points at the end of the game,
Yeah.
for me, I like a high-scoring game like that. Like, it feels really good that you're getting so many points from so many different places.
Okay. So, yeah, final score. Final score for our review here.
Oh, man.
As you can tell, we're pretty passionate about this game, right?
Do you want to give yours first? Or you want me to give mine?
Yeah,
first?
I was gonna say I was leaning, and I mean like I was thinking we don't give like 0.5s. I was gonna say 7.5.
That's funny that we
And I
both,
just-
because we said that.
I was just like, I was gonna put it down, but I really do enjoy this game. I played it. This game made me play it over and over again in a small window of time. At conventions, because now we're getting into convention season. I played it at game night. We were waiting here. I played it again here. So I was like, wow, I'm actually really enjoying this game. It hasn't gotten stale, which is a real good shout out to this variability here. I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I was in the exact same boat. We both
Yeah.
said 7.5. I was debating which way it would lean. And I'm going to go with 8 as well.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I see those, like that stack of hubs. I want to play this game with as many of those hubs as possible.
Yep.
This game is not going to get old for me. You can have a vastly different experience every time you play because of that variability. And again, I don't want to say the word variability
You have.
too much.
We have.
But we have.
We have.
This game is so much variability.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about, I don't even know what they can do for expansions because there's
Yeah.
already so much variability built into the base game.
So you're going to get your play's worth. You're going to get your money's worth if you feel
for
like
sure.
in that replay, if this is something that connects with you. Hopefully we help and inform you today and we're able to convey what this game does for you. Space Station Phoenix, we both give it an 8.
8, yeah.
And with that, party people, thank you so much for taking time to watch this video today. Let us know how you feel about this game if you own it, because I know it's out on the market now. Just kind of came out, and we wanted to share our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts or your favorite engine building type game in the comments below. Hopefully it's a Luke Laurie game, but this one
really
is
good.
definitely a really good one. So yeah, let us know in the comments below. You take care, party people. You have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.